You've seen it before. A cargo ship pushing across the North Atlantic in the depths of winter. Gray sky sitting low over gray water. Long dark swells rolling underneath the hull. Spray coming over the bow and freezing the moment it lands. And somewhere below all of that, 20 people are going about their day like nothing unusual is happening. Because for them, nothing is. Outside, it's minus 30 degrees C. Wind coming off the water drops the effective temperature to around minus 45 degrees. That's cold enough to put frostbite on exposed skin in under 7 minutes. Cold enough to kill an unprepared person inside an hour. Those sailors are hundreds of miles from the nearest port, with the closest coastline a full day away at cruising speed. And out there, in that, they're running watches, maintaining machinery, managing cargo, and keeping a loaded vessel moving through some of the worst weather the ocean produces. Here's the part almost nobody considers. For a cargo crew in winter, that's an ordinary Tuesday. There are 3 layers to this story. The first covers what they're actually dealing with up on deck. The second reveals the technology keeping them alive below it. And the third is something almost nobody expects. By the end of this video, you'll look at a cargo ship completely differently. So what's actually happening out there in the middle of a winter crossing? Most people picture general discomfort, cold wind, rough seas, maybe some seasickness. The reality runs a lot harder than that, and the first threat has more to do with ice than with temperature. Freezing spray is standard across the North Atlantic, the Bering Sea, and the Norwegian Sea from November through March. And under those conditions, every exposed surface on the ship comes under continuous attack. Spray lifts off the waves, hits cold steel, and freezes on contact. Railings disappear under it, ladders get encased. Cranes, antennas, vents, and deck machinery all vanish slowly beneath a thickening shell of ice. That's the point where the situation turns genuinely dangerous, and the reason is weight. Ice accumulates entirely above the waterline, so every kilogram of it raises the ship's center of gravity. A light coating is manageable. Ice building faster than a crew can clear it starts rewriting the mathematics of the vessel's stability. The ship sits higher in the water. It answers differently to waves. A swell that would have been routine catches the hull at an angle nobody planned for. Cargo ships and fishing vessels have been lost to exactly this process, through slow accumulation that got away from the crew rather than any single dramatic moment. Which is why sailors go out on deck in the dark, in that cold, and physically break the ice off the ship. Not once. Repeatedly, through the night, with mallets and chippers and whatever else does the job. It's exhausting work and it's dangerous work. One slip on an iced-over deck near the rail, and the ocean is right there waiting. At those water temperatures, a person overboard has minutes. Not hours. Minutes. Crews work that job in pairs for exactly that reason. Somebody who goes down on an ice deck at 3 in the morning needs another person standing close enough to notice immediately. And the ice comes back within hours, so the same crew clears the same railings on the next watch, and the one after that for as long as the freezing spray holds. The work still gets done, watch after watch, crossing after crossing, because the alternative is worse. The second threat is the watch schedule itself. Cargo ships run continuous watches around the clock, regardless of weather. Because a vessel at sea has to keep a proper navigational watch at all times, and the officer standing that watch carries personal legal responsibility for the ship during their entire duty period. In a North Atlantic winter storm, that means holding a shift on the bridge in conditions that would shut down most industries on land. Monitoring radar, managing course corrections, tracking weather systems, and staying in contact with the engine room. The ocean keeps going regardless of conditions. So does the watch. But here's the part that changes the entire story. Below deck, the experience is almost unrecognizable. And understanding why means understanding what a cargo ship actually is from an engineering standpoint. That hull functions as a self-contained habitat, built specifically to keep human beings alive and working in an environment that would otherwise kill them. The technology doing that job runs quietly in the background, invisible to nearly everyone who depends on it. Start with something most people never learn about steel. It conducts heat roughly 400 times faster than wood. That number matters enormously out here. A cargo ship is a steel hull surrounded on every side by seawater barely above freezing and air well below it. Strip out insulation and active heating and the interior sheds its warmth fast. At minus 30 degrees C with wind driving spray off the ocean, an unheated vessel becomes dangerously cold inside an hour. Dangerously cold in the specific sense that this kind of cold starts impairing judgment before a person notices anything is wrong. The obvious fix seems simple enough. Run the main engines. Cargo ships carry enormous diesel engines that throw off tremendous heat as a byproduct of operation. Problem solved. Except main propulsion engines exist to move a fully loaded vessel across an ocean under load, and running them at reduced output purely for heat accelerates wear on pistons, cylinders, and turbochargers, components worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to replace. For operators working on tight margins, that kind of avoidable wear stays off the table. So the maritime industry engineered something better, and what it came up with over decades is one of the most overlooked pieces of technology afloat: Hidden inside almost every modern cargo ship sits a system called an auxiliary boiler. Most people have never heard of it. Out in the middle of a winter crossing, it becomes one of the most critical systems on the entire vessel. The auxiliary boiler burns its own fuel, completely independent of the main propulsion engines. It heats water and circulates it continuously through radiators in every cabin, the galley, the bathrooms, and the engine room, while the sea outside sits right around freezing and the air holds at -30 degrees C. Crew members below deck walk around in ordinary clothes, eat hot meals, and sleep in warm bunks. Working alongside the boiler are the service generators, smaller diesel engines running continuously through the whole voyage, powering the lights, the communications equipment, the navigation systems, the ventilation, and every heating control on board. The main engine drives the ship. The generators keep everything else alive. Together, those two systems are the entire difference between a livable environment and a steel box in a frozen ocean. When both are running properly, life below deck feels startlingly normal. Hot food 3 times a day, warm showers, a common room where off-watch crew decompress between shifts. Somebody has coffee going at almost any hour. The corridors hold a steady temperature the whole way through the accommodation block, and the only real reminder of what sits on the other side of that steel is the sound of spray hitting the deck overhead. From the inside, a cargo ship crossing the winter North Atlantic feels like a job rather than a survival situation. Which raises the question nobody ever asks: what happens when the systems fail? It's 2 in the morning. The ship is 5 days out from the nearest port. Outside it's -35 degrees, the wind is gusting at 50 knots, and spray is sheeting across the bow. Most of the crew is asleep. Then one of them wakes up cold. The cabin feels wrong. The radiator beside the bunk is cold, completely cold. A check of the heating controls shows nothing responding. A call down to the engine room confirms it. The boiler has tripped offline. There's a fault somewhere in the system. The backup circuit failed to engage, and every degree of warmth that took hours to build is now bleeding out of the ship. Above the bunk, a thin film of ice is already forming on the inside of the porthole glass. This scenario comes straight out of real operational experience. Equipment fails on well-maintained ships with experienced crews. Sensors develop faults. Pumps quit. Electrical components that worked perfectly on the last crossing give out on this one. And when it happens 5 days from port in the middle of a winter ocean, calling for outside help and receiving it in time stops being an option. You solve the problem with what exists aboard, right now. That's the reality of deep water cargo work in winter, and it's exactly why every experienced cold weather sailor lives by the same rule. Redundancy is survival. Somewhere on that ship, an engineer is already awake, already pulling on insulated coveralls, already heading below to find the fault before it cascades into something larger. The goal is fixing the problem before most of the crew ever learns there was one, which is why preparation carries as much weight as the systems themselves. Surviving a winter crossing begins weeks before departure. Ice on deck is the first thing every experienced crew plans around, because in severe freezing spray, accumulation reaches several centimeters, all of it piling up above the waterline. Every hour without active ice management is another hour the center of gravity climbs, and across a long crossing in bad conditions, that math adds up fast. The second piece is emergency equipment. Cold weather gear for every crew member, spare thermals, insulated boots, and gloves rated for handling frozen steel with bare hands nowhere near the equation. Backup heating elements. A sleeping bag rated to -40 degrees C sits in personal kit as standard issue on vessels running northern routes. The heating holds up almost every night. On the night it quits, in the middle of the dark, 5 days from the nearest port, that sleeping bag buys time. Time to troubleshoot, time to repair, time to make the right call instead of the panicked one. Out there, time is the most valuable thing anyone has, and preparation is how you buy it. Now here's the part that surprises almost everyone who hasn't lived it. Ask a cargo sailor who spent years making winter crossings whether they'd trade it for an easier life, and most of them say no without hesitating. That answer stops people cold every time. There's a particular satisfaction that comes from sitting warm and functional inside a vessel, while the ocean outside does everything in its power to make that impossible. Spray breaking over the bow, wind screaming across the deck, ice building on every surface above the waterline. And below deck, the galley is warm, the cabins are warm, and the ship is doing precisely what it was engineered to do. Holding the cold out, holding the sea out, keeping the people inside alive and working through conditions that would be lethal without it. That feeling exists nowhere on land. Once someone has experienced it, it stays with them. The most extreme conditions produce the most irreplaceable experiences as often as they produce miserable ones. So the next time footage comes across your screen of a cargo ship out on a gray winter ocean, spray off the bow, sky the color of iron, long dark waves running under the hull, think about what's happening below deck. That crew is warm, they're prepared, and they know exactly what their ship is doing around them. They're carrying out one of the most demanding and least appreciated jobs on the planet, moving the world's cargo straight through the world's worst weather. Because that's what cargo ships do. And that's what cargo sailors do.